presentation will be here, probably closer to 6:30, and that's when we'll do a presentation from him. But I wanted to see if everyone just wants to talk about traffic calming, or if there's anything else, and I can kind of make a list to make sure I cover it. We can do that at the end as well.
Is there any way you can fix the curve so the wheelchair will go up and down?
Which, a specific curve, or?
All the curves on Bartlett Road.
I will bring that to the attention of staff.
The wheelchair will not go up and down the curves. It can't go.
Power wheelchair.
Power wheelchair.
A regular wheelchair.
And is that at like the intersections, you mean, because the slope?
On the intersections, our driveway.
Okay.
Our daughter can't get to our house.
I will follow up on that. When Edward's here, we can mention it to him, because that would be part of the infrastructure as well. And if you want to provide me with your specific address, then we can see if we can take care of that one, so you have that accessibility.
Well, I always wondered why we always, since we live, kids going in wheelchairs on the road.
Yeah.
And you couldn't figure out why. And then our daughter's in a wheelchair, and I got stuck on the road.
If you want to give me your address, then I will follow up on that specifically. The question was about curbs and accessibility with wheelchairs, and I will say under the AODA, Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, I believe it's 2025, then all public spaces will have to be accessible. So anything new that's going in is at a higher accessibility level, and we are working at retrofitting things along the way. So where there's a specific concern, then I'll bring that to the attention of staff and see if we can get that one kind of sooner rather than later. But the plan is for an accessible city by 2025. Does anyone else have any other? Yeah.
You and I talked about the streetlights and the east, and the north-south Wonderland is flooded. It's getting so bad. But trying to cross Village Green from the east-west, the light is so short, and people walking barely can get halfway across, and the lights change. Yeah, across Wonderland. But it's dangerous. And people run those lights so much that it's hard to even get around.
So that's one that's been brought to my attention, both the traffic congestion on Wonderland and that light, and by yourself and someone else as well. And you would know I live on Steeplechase, so I use that intersection quite a bit. The lights are checked every 6 months for timing and against traffic flows. But we can certainly bring that one to the attention again and ask for it to be looked at, especially if people can't get across in the time.
Well, all I need to do is put someone there and watch someone cross walking, and they will not get across.
And so I'll follow up on that. And then for the Wonderland congestion, you guys may know that there is widening plans. If anyone can't hear me, please just flag. I know I speak a little softly. But for Wonderland Road congestion, there is widening plans, but we're looking at down the road. It's not in the next few years.
Do you have a plan on how you're going to move the new buildings that you put in almost on the sidewalk now? Like Wonderland, Oxford, Costco North area, I mean, the buildings are almost on the sidewalk now. If you're going to widen it,
How
where are you going?
Well, the widening I'm talking about is from Commissioners down this way. So I think Southdale, south to the 401, it's already under an environmental assessment for widening, and the next phase would be up to Commissioners.
The building still will be there.
Yes, and these buildings are still quite close as well, but that is how the planning is approving applications now. So no, I don't have a plan.
Southdale's atrocious.
Or
Very heavy now.
So you would take 5 minutes to get from Wonderland to Farm Road. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's a 2-minute drive.
yeah.
And then I put that curve rec center in there. It's gonna be even worse.
So there is widening plan for Southdale. I would have to double check the timeline, but I know it's about 5 to 10 years out.
So you're right. I'm really concerned.
So this is one of the things that we struggle with as a city, right? We're growing, but we can't upgrade our infrastructure as quickly to accommodate the growth. This year, I know that our investments in infrastructure and road widening to accommodate growth is larger than it has been in the past several years. I believe it's about $176 million in investments this year. And that includes the Commissioners Road, but it doesn't solve all of our problems. And when you're doing construction on one road, then you're gonna see it detouring on other roads, and we're gonna see it on Village Green and Viscount and Southdale because of the commissioners. So I did want to chat about that briefly because Commissioners Road will be closed starting next week for about 5 days. I'm not sure if everyone was aware of that or not. So the planned detour route, and there's a press release for that, will be Wonderland, Southdale to Warrencliffe. So you may still notice increased traffic in your neighborhood and on streets like Viscount and Village Green, because people know they can get through that way, but the plan is all the signage will get people up to Southdale and down Southdale, and that starts on the 8th.
What about the businesses that are located in that area, are they gonna be closed?
Some of them may be, some of them may stay open. Staff have contacted each of the business owners and they'll be working with them. And I believe it's the 8th to the 13th. One here first.
As someone who many years ago got nailed by radar at Fox Mill and Viscount, when they're doing that, why don't they start running radar?
Increased enforcement.
All it has to be is just one day and people are going, ooh, we better slow down because we don't know when it's going to be back.
And we do, and if people have contacted me before when there's a specific problem, and we will ask police to enforce in that area, and they'll do that exact thing. It's a 1 or 2 day blitz. It gets those people that, oh, there's radar here, and it slows down. I know we had it on Guildwood, after complaints about Village Green, about 2 weeks ago, I saw them, with the pickup truck doing that. So if you have an area where there's concerns, and I know they're kind of all over, but if you're like, you know, my street's really bad, if you email me, Ashley or I will get in touch with London Police and say, you know, can you please do a blitz in this area? And they've been pretty responsive at that.
Dalhousie Drive.
Dalhousie, okay.
The buses are among the worst.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, the city buses, there's a lot of kids in that area now, in the townhouses. And cars are fun, but the buses come flying that one corner, or the bend is really a blind spot. And someday, I fear the worst.
Well, we'll look for enforcement for Dalhousie, and then anything else, email me or write it down on a card and we'll email them in. There's another one right here.
I'm just curious where commissioners being closed from?
It is, I believe, from Topping Lane? No,
Okay.
Knights Hill.
Where's Knightsville?
Knights Hill is past Andover, halfway to, or a block or 2 over.
Okay, till where?
All the way to Wonderland.
Because I have a business on Topping Lane and I'm never informed. And I will tell you, my clients are pretty ticked off in the mornings on childcare, when they're trying to drop off their children and they're late for work. They are not too happy because Topping Lane has been closed about 3 times in the past few months, and I'm never informed. And I call the city and no one ever gets back to me.
I will follow up, and if you want to leave me your email
Okay.
address in that
I
comment, then
definitely
I'll see. I know the letters went out to sort of Commissioners Road, but they may have neglected that, and I can certainly ask them not to in the
They
future.
definitely have.
I was taking Topping the first 2 weeks of July, and then the 3rd week I saw, oh, it's closed, so.
Yeah.
It's in Florida.
Why Knightsbridge? Because that is past where all that, why didn't they start in Andover? Because isn't that already constructed there?
Yeah, I would have to look, and when Edward Solano arrives, he may know, or he may not, because it's construction end. But they may be going back and doing something, they may be removing the asphalt and redoing. So sometimes they'll put like a temporary asphalt down, and I think that's what happened there, if my memory serves last year, was they kind of closed it up, but I think the plan was to go back in and do it, so I could follow up for you though.
Doesn't really matter.
It's gonna happen.
Yep.
I have a question, because when we were talking to via email before, Karen Armstrong,
Yep.
the speed bumps were not warranted for that area. Okay? That same night as they put the 2 signs up, the accident happened that night.
Yes, on Village Green.
Now, it's a speedway, so if you wanna save money, why don't we just put 3 more stop signs in from Steeplechase to Andover? 3 more 3-way stop signs. I don't care where they are, but that slows traffic right down. So if an ambulance has to go by or a fire truck, they can just zoom right through it. But that's an option. It's a lot cheaper than any speed bumps. Maybe go down Avenue.
Or
Would that be
even,
an idea?
Yeah.
Because that, like I said, that definitely would slow traffic down because people have to stop.
So it is an idea for sure, and I don't wanna stand here and profess like I know all of the answers because I
No,
don't,
I'm not
right?
saying- I'm not saying
I'm
I
like
don't
you guys,
either.
I've picked up a fair amount in the past 2 years and I can kind of relay what I've picked up. Stop signs can happen, you'll notice I got one in at Viscount in Pine Valley a little while
Beautiful,
ago.
slows traffic right down.
So if you came to me and said, I want 20 stop signs and they're here, I'm probably not gonna be able to do that, I'm not a miracle worker, but if you said, you know what, here's a really good place, and if the numbers are close for staff, then we can probably work on that. So if we're looking at the stretch of Village Green between Steeplechase and
Deer
Andover.
Street and Andover.
Yeah,
It's, even a quarter after 5 in the morning, as a car goes by, I bet you he goes 100 clicks an hour.
I heard you'd be coming, someone told me.
Thanks very much.
But based on what Ted's idea is, I mean, even if you put them temporary while that construction is going on, at least it would give us a chance to get out of our driveways. And put them on what about just putting them on the crescents going out on the Village Green, like they did?
That's what I think, like
Yeah.
they did one at Guilford,
Yeah.
or wherever, if it's figured out, to me, 3 more, that would have to slow the traffic
Yeah.
down.
It
I'm
might be
ready to
true.
take a 2x4 and put it across the street, 5 o'clock in the morning.
We could take a look, but I suspect that we do that, and what's gonna happen is the people from Viscount are gonna call me and say, all the traffic's over here.
That's okay.
We're the Village Green people, we're not the Viscount people.
Well, Viscount's a busy, it's
Well, I don't care about so much the traffic, London is growing, traffic is, Village Green is a long road, traffic will always be there, it will get more and more as the life goes on. That the speed is what I'm concerned about. You have a pool right there, people flying by there, there's kids running across the street. Huh? We've seen quite a few accidents in about 22
It
years.
takes a child being killed. It takes a child being killed, it's getting to do anything.
Yeah,
Is it only Westmount that have a speeding problem? How come you don't see that in the rest of the city? All those darn speed bumps every 200 feet.
yeah, so Westmount got the speed humps 15,
Yeah.
20 years ago,
Yeah.
and it was really pushed, especially on the west side of Wonderland. And you're right, we don't have it other places, so other places they've done different things, but no, it's not just Westmount that has this. If I was in Ward 1, I could host this exact same meeting and they would say, you know, these 3 streets are kind of key problems.
But they don't have the bumps, the
They
way
don't
that
have-
Westmount have.
Right.
This
So
is
when-
the worst place in the city. I do everything to avoid driving in Westmount. I've been living here for 12 years now. Thank God I live close to Southdale, because I just get out and I go downtown through Southdale. To me, I've been observing that for 12 years now. You see those cars going over the bump, and they're frustrated because of all those darn obstacles, and then they gun it to the next bump. You tell me if that's any quieter. You see, I really don't see. I believe this gentleman is right. Put stop signs if you want, but get those darn speed
And I'm
bumps
gonna
away.
ask when Mr. Soldo arrives for him to comment on that, because he may have some thoughts on that, but I don't have an engineering perspective on what's better and what works better, why.
You know, I really believe that the downfall of Westmount Mall has a lot to do with the speed bump in Westmount.
Oh, boy.
People just hate driving into subdivision.
The owner.
Well,
Yep.
I've
over
known
here.
a lot of people that said they would never buy a house in Westmount because of
Sorry,
this.
one more.
I just wanted to mention that at Andover and Elm Grove, we have stop signs. And the officer is often there on the corner on Elm Grove, watching the stop sign. You cannot imagine how many people fly through that stop sign and never even stop. It really, I agree that we need stop signs. I exit often from Elm Grove off onto Village Green, and I know what you're talking about, the speed coming down that hill from Steeplechase to go around, and you see the cars moving by. But I do want to warn you that a stop sign is not a be-all, because so many people that are determined to speed, they speed through. They may kind of look at the sign, and if nobody's coming,
But it is a society now, everybody's in a hurry.
it is, and
And you
especially
don't
with the
get time to do
construction.
anything. Like, I can come in from Commissioners, come down Cranbrook, down Viscount, down Village Green, house on McMaster Court, 7 speed bumps.
Yep.
So I avoid it, it's just ridiculous. 7 speed bumps to get to my house.
You should go to Bruce Street.
Well, I can imagine,
Bruce
well, I don't
Street
be down that
is
area.
nothing but speed bumps.
Yeah, it's just
From Warncliffe all the way to Wortley Village.
Really?
You could hit 8 to 10 speed bumps.
That might be because of the construction right now.
I have no idea, all I know is I feel so sorry for people
So,
who live in that street.
and I don't want to steal Mr. Soldo's presentation, but I suspect what he's going to talk about is kind of complete streets and what we're doing with new streets. And then you guys are going to say, well, how does that help us? So I think that's a conversation we need to have. So how we're designing streets now is different than what we have in our community, right? We are not designing speed humps anymore. They're designing a different type of street, different look to the street that is helpful for traffic calming. So then we get into the problem of, you know, the 1,000 streets we have right now, what can we do there? And so I think that will probably be covered in the presentation. And so I'm gonna let Edward set up and try and field anything else that you might want covered so that we can make sure that it is covered.
Just for background information, I was at that meeting 20 years ago, whatever it was, when the presentation, or the suggestions came up for putting the speed bumps on Farnham. And I won't mention the gentleman's name, but he went on to be a councillor because of that was in there. But the reasoning was there was so much cut-through traffic going to West Mount Mall and the school buses and stuff like that. But now it just seems that people have gotten so used to that being cut through, that these are all cut-through roads, because they want to avoid the Wonderland Southdale congestion that they're cutting through. So my proposal back then, and it actually got a big round of applause, just put moats in and we have keys for the driveway.
I remember that, I would do toll roads, right? Western passes. Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing that you probably will hear is, you know, a lot of the people that are doing this speeding, we don't want to hear this, we think it's, you know, someone else from another part of the city. They are our neighbors, right? It's your neighbor who's rushing because they're late for soccer or whatever. So, how do we solve that, right?
Stand out there and scream at them like I do once in a while when I'm watering my trees.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Karen Armstrong. I emailed you a few times regarding the traffic, and like I said to you, it wasn't so much the amount of traffic that we have, because there's quite a few of us from Village Green that are here at this meeting tonight. It's the speed in which they go. Village Green is designed from the top, and it's just a thoroughway. It goes right down. It's a speedway. And I am very concerned. I don't have young children anymore, but I can see this happening. We've witnessed so many accidents, and we've also witnessed cars that go off the road and onto the sidewalk and then veer back on again. I can't tell you how, because I can hear the squeal of cars. We look out our windows and there it is. It's constant, but you talk about having police presence. They're there at the wrong times. They're not catching these people that are, and I mean, yes, I drive Village Green and I have caught myself saying, whoa, I gotta slow down a little bit. But at that one area where the pool is, it's gotta be the worst section. And I think we need more of this with, I mean, you know, 2 days is not enough and they're there at the wrong time, like I said.
And I think if you identify for me the times, then I can pass that on. If it's just the street, then I think this would be using their judgment. They would assume it's kind of that 8 to 9 in the morning. I think I saw the truck there between 2 and 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So if that's not the times of
That's not the
concern.
It's the guy at 5 o'clock in the morning.
5 o'clock every
Going
morning.
100.
Well, we're still a little bit before 6:30. We're gonna start, we're gonna film at 6:30, but it's not gonna film any of you. It may catch your voice, but it's gonna be directed at the screen for the presentation, and that's gonna be on my website. And so far, for anyone who's just joining, we've just kind of had a bit of a casual conversation to learn about what some of the issues and concerns are. I'm going to introduce Edward Soldo is here. He's the manager of roads and transportation. And Ashley Griffith at the back is my administrative assistant. So if you've emailed me and got a response from Ashley, she's very helpful and is great at fielding your questions and helping out. So far, what we've kind of talked about is wanting to know McMaster Drive, if you happen to know when they resurface, if they're putting speed humps back in. If you don't, that's okay, we can follow up on that. accessibility for curbs. I don't know if you can cover that. And talking about what is effective is stop signs, more frequent stop signs, effective traffic calming, or if you could comment on that. So I don't know if you want to touch those before, and then I will kind of moderate and grab your questions and.
So I'll start with the first question. If there's traffic calming on a roadway and we go in and we resurface, we install the same traffic calming that is there. We do look at potential enhancements in terms of if it's a speed bump, one of the larger bumps, most likely we'll go in and replace them with a speed cushion, which is our more modern sort of traffic calming device. We're trying to get away from a lot of those speed humps that you see in this area because they're actually quite dramatic in terms of what they do to vehicles. So we go with speed cushions. We don't install speed humps anymore in terms of the city. That's not a standard for us. In terms of curbs,
Sorry, what are the cushions?
they're gentler. I have a few pictures that I can show you later on about them as well.
Like the old ones on beach.
They're like across the road. It wouldn't be one solid piece. It would be like sections of
Like
speed.
on Wilson, right on that part there?
You can potentially straddle those. Some vehicles and some can't. No, there's different vehicle types that potentially could. So the curb question, if I can understand that correct, is that like curbs at the corner or?
Curbs at the corners and our driveway. Our daughter can't get to her house.
Right, so the city has standards in terms of what the grade should be going into people's driveways, what they should be at corners. Obviously, over time, things settle, curbs settle, your driveways may change. All new driveways that are done through new roadways meet accessibility standards. Saying that, when some of these homes were built 20, 30, 40 years ago, standards were different. Those accessibility standards didn't exist in those days, and potentially there could be a higher incline getting into your driveway. So that's a matter of when it's reconstructed, either by the city or potentially when you do your own driveway, that you should be looking at changing that. So whenever we go through a street and we reconstruct the street, we do put things back to meet current standards that exist today.
I don't think you're gonna let me change the curb. If I rip the curb, you guys are gonna get a little excited.
No, what I'm saying is the curb is the city's infrastructure, right?
You say when you redo your driveway, well, redoing my driveway isn't gonna help because it's the curb.
It's the curb itself.
Right, so when the city comes in to reconstruct the roadway, we would change it to meet standards, so. As you can obviously relate, there's thousands of homes in the city, and as we go along, we change standards to reflect the existing ones. The last question got me there.
Stop signs.
Stop signs. So stop signs, point blank, are not traffic calming. Okay? If you want to see what stop signs do in terms of helping slow people down, I'll direct you to City of Hamilton. Does nothing, zero. Actually creates a safety hazard by putting in multiple stop signs when they're not warranted. Because all that does is give everyone in this room and your children and my children a false sense of security. If you put too many stop signs in, what happens is people just speed up in between, and lots of people totally ignore the stop signs. There are provincial warrants for installing stop signs and when you need them, and you should only install them when they're needed because they are not a traffic calming device, they're not a speed limiter. The more you put in when they're not required, all you do is cause frustration with the drivers and they just ignore them. So it's better to, if you're crossing the roadway and you come to a place where there's a stop sign, you want to make sure as a pedestrian, first of all, that person is going to stop. And if you have all these stop signs in a row or places that are not needed, I'll tell you from multiple experience, industry sort of research, what that does is just create more disobedience of the law itself. So I always say that stop signs are not a traffic calming device. And putting in stop signs are not needed is actually creating a higher.
They're not. You don't want them because they work. And that's the only reason why you don't want them. If anything that works, we don't get. You remember that. That's the rule of thumb with the traffic department. That's right. You listen.
Hey, we're putting them down on the side. So, so what I have is a presentation about our traffic calming policy. I can never fix this. Is there a clicker to move forward or nothing?
No, this is just what came with the room.
Okay. So I'm gonna probably have to stand behind, so I need to change the slides. Stand here.
And also, sorry for anyone else who came late, if you do need to leave early and you feel like your question hasn't been answered, or if you have a very specific question, I've left some comment sheets at the back. You can give me a way to get back to you and I can make sure that your question is answered, okay?
I'd like to say that when I applied for the ticket, it says 6:30 to 8:30.
Yes, it does. So we had some people that thought 6 to 9 and some that were 6:30 to 8:30, so you haven't missed presentations. We've kind of been troubleshooting individual questions, which we'll still have time for after. So you haven't missed anything. You're not late at all.
So I'm going to talk tonight about the city's traffic calming policy. I want to start off with a greater context, first of all. The standards were different in the past. Standards for roadways, especially local ones, you built them to move traffic. And, unfortunately, we have different classifications. We have arterial roads, which are meant to move lots of traffic and truck traffic. We have collector roads, which are within the neighborhoods that move traffic within the neighborhood to the main roads. And then we have the local roads. And, the way we design roads in the past was really meant to move more traffic around. It was meant for people parking on the road, all those sort of things. The roads tend to be a lot wider. So the way we design roads today, new subdivisions, if you go some of the newer subdivisions on say in the southwest or up in the north, we don't design them as wide. And the real reason for that is a couple of pictures in my presentation is they're just a runway then. There's no cars, no curbs, you don't feel that sense of being constrained. People tend to speed. People drive at a rate of speed that the environment, the cues that they get from the environment, get back from the area that's driving through, makes them feel comfortable. So if you have a very wide road, there's not two directions going down the road because people tend to use it as a height. So today, we design roads differently. A lot of roads are only 6 meters wide, which really constrains them and slows people down. In the past, unfortunately, we tended to design them with roads that could have anywhere from 8, 9, and I've seen some roads that are 10 meters wide, which are quite wide. So we have a traffic calming policy that kind of relates to those existing neighborhoods. And how do we slow traffic down on those neighborhood roadways which have that speeding issue? I can tell you, we also have a complete streets policy at the city. When we go in and reconstruct these roadways, and we'll hear about it from both sides, we change the roads. So a lot of the roads that we're reconstructing, we find a road that's 8, 9, 10 meters wide. We tend to narrow the road these days when we reconstruct them. We change the boulevards, we change the whole sort of appearance of the roadway itself. But that's a long process. Local roadways, they last a long time, not a lot of traffic on them. And unfortunately, it takes about 40 to 50 years for that roadway to require reconstruction. So what do you do in the interim? That's really why we have the traffic calming policy. So traffic calming, and we heard a little bit about this tonight, is about a number of things. One, it's engineering. What does a roadway look like itself? Number two, enforcement. It's about getting the police out there to actually enforce the speed limits. And number three, and I would say to you, this is the most important one, because I think I heard this when I walked in the room, it's education. 90% of the time, I've done multiple studies over my 20 years of doing this, people are speeding are your neighbors. So it's usually, a real important component of this is education. There are some routes, I'll admit, that are cut through areas from one major road to another. So that isn't in your local neighborhood, there's people cutting through. But most of the time, in your neighborhood, it's actually people living in your neighborhood that are speeding. And you as a pedestrian walking along the roadway or a resident at your house, I would say to you as well, when we do a lot of these traffic calming studies, I'm going to get into the process in a minute, what you perceive as speeding may not actually be speeding. It's very hard to understand someone going by at 50. Are they going by at 50? Going by at 60? You can tell when someone's going by at 100, but you really don't know at a slower speed are they speeding or not. So we do a lot of these studies, and it comes back that the average speed is actually less than the posted speed. But what does that mean to all of us? Because there's always outliers. There's always someone who likes to speed. I'll use my street as a perfect example. Long street, no traffic coming. It's actually a narrow roadway, but it is a straight roadway. And I go out and walk my dog, and I'll think, well, maybe there's some speeding going on here. I know inherently that if the average speed is about less than 50, but I always remember that person at the end of my street who goes and screams by my house at 78 kilometers an hour. So the average, the majority, 99% of the people that are going by you, they're actually at speed limit, or maybe just over, or maybe just under. But you always remember the person who's going 70 or 80. So that kind of creates this idea that there's a lot of speeding issues in your neighborhood. And unfortunately, those people, we can apply all these measures. You can apply education, you can apply engineering, you can apply enforcement. Well, maybe enforcement might work once in a while. It's very hard to change that person's attitude in terms of how they actually drive. Those people will find a way to speed no matter what. It's something that enforcement's probably the best way of dealing with them. So it's really a combination of all three of those factors in terms of traffic calming. Traffic calming, just to give you a definition, I won't get into too much technical jargon here. It's really finding ways of using physical measures that negate the negative effects of vehicle use, alter driver behavior, and improve conditions for non-motorized street users. And that last part's really important, right? Our roadways are not just for cars. Our roadways for all users, cyclists on the road, people who are walking along the streets themselves. We want to make sure that we design a roadway that accommodates all of those. So we do have a traffic calming policy in the city. It's really, the goal is to reduce high traffic speeds. And I'm going to point out that the high traffic speeds there. We're really trying to hopefully solve those outliers, those people that are speeding at high rates of speed, and increasing the pedestrian and safety for other users on the street. So we have a number of traffic calming devices. Traffic calming has been around since the late 90s, mid-90s. And realistically, there's been a lot of tried, true, and tested measures to reduce speeding on roadways. A lot of before and after studies. We've tried things such as speed bumps, speed humps, speed cushions, raised intersections, textured sidewalks, crosswalks, curb extensions, roundabouts. And all of those measures there really are meant to change the appearance of the roadway and the feedback that you're getting from the road that you can't speed. You see a straight line, nothing deterring you from speeding. Right? People tend to just pick up on the speed. But all of those measures are really physical measures or visual cues back to the driver that they need to slow down. And we've had a lot of experience on these. Some have worked. Fortunately, some have not. I think I would say to you that the ones that work the best are ones that are impediments to you actually going along the roadway. Maybe not the most popular thing by a lot of people, but speed cushions, we know they work. We have the data that proves that they work. If people don't want to speed over a speed bump or a speed cushion at 70, 80 kilometers an hour, because you can cause some damage to your car. So people tend to slow down. Raised intersections and crosswalks, they raise awareness there that pedestrians are going to be there. Eventually, you're going to have some deflection in terms of the roadway. Textured side crosswalks, it's a good measure. It does provide for some visual cues to people that the pedestrians are crossing there. Curb extensions, I'm not a fan of them, to be honest. They're more like a slalom course. You're just going to find a way.
They're garbage.
Right, so
they're garbage. I've been surrounded by them. They haven't got rid of one car in my street.
So we
turned
don't
into
do
a
them.
dump.
we don't install them, anymore in the city.
You will take ours out tomorrow, get the jackhammer out there.
Roundabouts,
No parking anywhere, you can't park, your home's a cell phone stand and where people have parking up front. You people knew this. You know how much money you spent to put them in?
Hey, we can let him talk.
Thank you.
We're gonna explain it to him
we're all
after.
standing in the hallway.
Screwed us good.
So, roundabouts, again, they physically change the behavior of the roadway. You're forced to slow down, you're forced to merge with traffic. There's a lot of roundabouts in new subdivision. We're putting them also on some of our arterial roadways. So that's a good traffic calming measure as well. And you'll see more and more of them in subdivisions. So while we talked about all of those, in the past, I gotta tell you as well that the way we designed subdivisions, that was a terrible way to design subdivisions. Just the whole way we designed subdivisions in the 70s and 80s were long routes around and the way the roads actually interacted with each other kind of created, a funneling effect by putting cars into subdivisions on certain roadways and allowing them to speed along there. So again, all of that is from past experience, not just here in London, but across Canada. We've learned from that as an industry, and we design the subdivisions differently these days. So I want to get into this, but this is actually the flow chart that we follow at the city in terms of how we accept an application for traffic calming and the measures we go through. The next slide is a little bit simpler. It kind of highlights the traffic calming policy as a whole. We say traffic calming is the bane of our existence in the transportation department because everyone complains about speed, and we hear a lot of traffic concerns by residents. It could be the speeding, it could be pedestrian safety, crossing. So we do take the concerns and we go out and assess every situation. We undertake data collection to see if there actually is a problem. And I'll go back to what I said earlier. A lot of time we go out, we hear speeding is an issue. Well, first of all, we're going to look at the road. And I'll use the example, my own subdivision, someone said, well, we've got a speeding problem here. And I live in this subdivision. The stretch they're complaining about is 100 meters long. It's not physically possible to speed on 100 meters on road. And so I understand there's concern by residents there, but it's not actually physically possible to do that, get up and speed. So we assess the data, the actual roadway itself. We actually undertake data collection sometimes to see if there is. So we'll put out counters. You'll see little plastic covered squares in the middle of your road. It's basically counting the cars, it's counting the type of car, the speed of the cars going by. And then we assess what's the average speed, what's the 85th percentile speed, what's 95th percentile, what's the highest or maximum speed. So if we get back an evaluation where it says, road is close to 50, the average speed is 45, I would say to you most times there isn't a speeding problem. But if we look at the outliers and we see there's 10% of the people out there speeding at 70 or 80, there is something wrong, even though the average speed is lower. So we assess all of those sort of perspectives. We have an assessment process where we look at speed, volume, the collisions, number of pedestrians, all of those. That goes into evaluation, and then based on that evaluation, there's a certain number of points to see if there actually is a case you need to undertake an actual project itself. That request, if it's a valid request, then it gets added to our traffic calming list, and I think the councillor did indicate it's quite a long list. It's a long list of projects that we would undertake. So getting on the list is one thing. At that point then, what we require is support of the community. A lot of places we have one or two people that may raise an issue, while others don't believe there is actually an issue. So what we require before we start spending a lot of money on doing evaluations and doing project designs is that the petition be signed by 25% of the people along the stretch of the roadway that's going to be impacted. If you're going to be getting potentially curb extension or a speed cushion in front of your house, you want to know that's gonna be there. You may be supportive of it, you may not be supportive of it. So we wanna have at least 25% of the people that bought in. Doesn't mean it's gonna go forward, but we wanna have community support for moving forward on that initiative. So then we'll go back and we'll prepare different plans. It could be, yes, sir.
If a street is a major street in a subdivision, is it only the people who live on the street that get surveyed, or do the people who use the street to reach their part of the subdivision also get interviewed?
Because that's a great question. We have had a lot of dialogue on this, and this is one of those issues that really potentially pits different parts of the neighborhood against one another. So the way that traffic calming stands, policy, the council approved, only the people on the street that have traffic calming impact, like the actual infrastructure on it, get a say in terms of traffic calming. We've had situations in the past where a neighborhood off the main street petitions for traffic calming, but then the people on the street that get the traffic calming don't want it. So it's really those people that are directly impacted right in front of their properties that have a say in terms of their open spaces.
Who absorbs the cost to install these speed bumps, etc.?
It comes.
It doesn't.
It's taxpayer end of the day.
Yeah, but doesn't it increase the taxpayers' money for those that want it? Shouldn't they be the one absorbing the cost? Just like streetlights?
So there is a discussion. There was a discussion. Should this be a local improvement or not? Where the people that are fronting on those pay or not. But the way it's been decided right now, because it provides a little bit greater benefit, it would be the coming out of the tax base itself. So I'm gonna keep talking here for a bit. So once we compare the plans, we usually have a meeting similar to this. We lay out the plans themselves. We talk about the results. We talk about the various traffic calming devices that we're gonna do. And at that point, a letter gets sent to every homeowner along that stretch, and we need 51% to say yes, or else the traffic calming doesn't go in. We've had cases in the past, before the policy was changed, 40% would get it, and then 2 weeks later, we get a petition to take it all out. So 51%, and they have to be 51% saying yes. If you do not respond to the survey, the town says a no. Okay, so we get people to say no, we say yes. If you do not respond, that's a no, because we want to affirm 51% to move forward. Because again, it is spending tax dollars. Then we'll get into final line implementation. So I would say, depending on the neighborhood and the problem, there's different solutions to that. These are what I was referring to previously. Don't necessarily use speed humps anymore. No, we don't at all.
Oh, and I know why they work again. Anything that works, don't get it. You're not gonna get it. All you're gonna get is a bunch of extensions and you see them.
Actually, those we do use, sir.
You do, but get one on my street and I'll put one on every house. Andover Drive is a mess because of you people. You're being annexed by the Ontario road system. Nothing but garbage around here. Build high rises everywhere.
Do you want to chat outside with me about this, with the rest of the group?
I will.
Why don't we go chat, and that way the rest can get a conversation.
All right.
So speed cushion is a physical impediment. Is it perfect? No. So these work. I'll tell you they work. If you have a truck, yeah, you can get around. And why is that? Because we have to allow for emergency vehicles to get to your home. If you have a fire, if you have an ambulance that needs to get there. Believe me, EMS gives me a lot of grief in terms of speed humps. So we've got to design them in a way that they can get around them. If you have a bus route on your route as well. But again, even those vehicles have to stop or slow down.
So I'm just curious why then the speed bumps that we actually have in West Round are not changed strictly on those premises.
Right.
For emergency vehicles being able to.
So we are going to send out as much as there's different projects throughout the city. Normally, we'll do it, when we review the road. If there's a large desire by any one street to remove them, you can give us petition, like, you're referring to the one by west of the school, right?
Yes.
And all those.
They're hideous, like they're killing the cars.
Right, so,
And that's doing 20 to no more than 30 over them.
Totally agree.
I would say to you that, we would probably run into the same process. We wanna see if people, do you want them in or out anymore? And then if you want them
That shouldn't be
in.
an option if they're already there, right? 'Cause
I'm just saying
usually
replace what's there
Yeah, we need
with the speed
access
cushions.
for those emergency vehicles anyway, so that should be taken out.
I don't wanna hazard to guess, would the community support them or not, I'm not sure.
I think everybody likes them, but they're just so worn out on the edges.
They're too big.
Yeah.
They're too big.
They're, if you go in 10, you can feel it in your car.
So what I would suggest to you that if you wanna highlight this, put together a petition, okay?
But it's only the people in Cranbrook get the quote.
What's that?
It's only people you see.
Yeah, like I live on Ford, like Master
But I
Drive,
can
we
do
won't
a
get the
petition
same.
even though I don't live on Cranbrook, I live on the street right off of it.
Yeah.
And that's the only way.
So we will go back to those people on Granbrook though.
Okay,
And
but I
ask
can
them.
petition them,
Good,
and then,
yeah. Like, I mean, we recognize in the city that those ones are problematic, and we are replacing them as we go along. So it's just a matter of,
but I don't see them doing that road anytime soon.
That's a major artery, that's not a small street. That has access to all of us now. That should take priority over almost anyone of us,
So they're redoing McMaster Drive as we speak. So they've taken the old big humps out. So when they pave it, which they're getting ready to do that today, is that what they'll put in place of them?
if there's those old bumps, they should be going in like that.
Or will they not put any?
You know, they should be coming
So
around
the
back.
old ones are all gone, obviously, because we new sewer working. So we'll get the newer style like that then.
Yeah. And I'm gonna follow up on that, because that's the way the process has been going everywhere else. in the
Yeah,
city.
they're getting ready to do the paving, they just gotta sit down.
Excuse me.
You write that down.
The extension there, Buttonbush being built right now,
Okay.
you're gonna be extending Cranbrook all the way up to Longworth. Are you gonna put those ugly things in there too, or is that,
I'd have to go back and check, I don't know.
no? Are you gonna have a petition to find out who wants that and who
Well,
don't?
normally we try to design a road that we don't need to have traffic calming these days.
What was the rationale for putting them on Cranbrook and say not Pine Valley?
So first, sir, I can't answer that question, it was before my time.
Was it
That's
because of
not-
the mall?
I think
Was
there was
it
a lot of
because it was the mall?
infiltration. There was a lot of infiltration going into the mall and to the school.
Because there's a speed bump behind the mall, on the road behind the mall, and then there's one on Notting Hill. And it's all part of that same string of speed bumps on the west side of Wonderland.
I could follow up on that. There was an entire environmental assessment of the whole area. Back then, there was restrictions put on turning from Southdale. There was actually a community plan for traffic calming. And I think this was like in the late '90s, something like that.
I would suggest that the mall isn't what it used to be, and the traffic calming, if that was done to try to get more people onto Wonderland if they're going to the mall, that should probably be rethought, because I don't think the mall is what it used to be as a destination, and where the speed bumps, and that's why they're there.
That was a Gordon initiative.
The original plan said that they were gonna put in raised tables, which is like over 30 feet, it goes up 4 inches.
Yeah.
Similar to what's on Beechwood. And then they brought in those temporary humps, which were, not before you were time, there was a 45-degree angle, 8-inch slope, or, 45-degree angle over 8 inches, 10 feet long. I mean, completely against, my dad's a civil engineer.
That's a launch pad.
And basically, yeah, it went against the federal guidelines as far as, what was there, just any of the design was. Could they just leave as they originally proposed in the original, stick to the original plan?
So I think, we're hearing a lot of concerns tonight about that whole area, and it might be time to just reevaluate the entire
they cut through traffic to get to the mall when they had in '97, when they tear up Wonderland Road, people generally detour around construction, and which caused a lot of people going through Notting Hill and stuff like that. Now, the mall is down by 90% as far as its stores. So, I mean, we're at the point we could probably get, have that issue.
You'll notice off of Southdale, used to be those left turn bans.
Yeah.
We got rid of those recently because you can see there as being a problem. You're not seeing that kind of cut through traffic in that area. We're seeing people actually staying on Wonderland, so we got rid of those. So, and that was actually as part of that study as well that came out of there, which I believe Councillor had initiated. Yeah.
Brings a good question about construction. So, construction commissioners, and also the construction on just temporary speed humps or speed cushions in there.
Yeah.
Is there anything that isn't covered in the policy anywhere? Or is that considered one of the construction, specifically when we're closing commissioners for 5? So you can just imagine cut through traffic and that's not just outrageous.
So that doesn't exist within the policy because it's not permanent. What we've heard from the public over the course of say like last 5 years is there is a lot of cut through traffic that happens when we do that kind of major construction. Unfortunately, major construction doesn't go away. Right? We have congestion to fix it. Commissioners being shut down next week. We have a detour route in place. We advertise as much as possible, people to go around. But no matter what we do, people are always going to find what they believe is the simplest and quickest way through. So if there's a major collector along that area, what we try to do is try to be a little more proactive, get speed humps in, we've seen some of those markers in the middle of the road. Raise that awareness. It's not going to stop people. People are always going to go there. Unless we start putting gates on roads, but we can't do that, right? So people are going to do that. It's just about raising awareness. So go ahead.
I'd like what you just said about reevaluating, because I've been living on Dallas since '86. The whole discussion at that time was not traffic calming, it was traffic return. They didn't want the traffic coming through, so they thought that was a way to stop people from coming into Westmount to cut through. The other thing too, what about when you do something like 5 days and now you're gonna have increased traffic on some of these smaller streets, putting in like signs 35 or 40?
So you are doing some of those. Okay. If I keep going. So I'll tell you, when it comes to traffic calming, this is your best bet. People may not like it, but this is your best. It's proven. We know it works. Other examples are raised intersections, as one gentleman in the back, Ray, talked about. Probably get just as many complaints about these, but they do work.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of making sure you know that they're there, highlighting them with paint and different materials. Raised crosswalks are similar to that. Especially coming up to a pedestrian crossing area, you want to make that deflection so that people have to slow down. Not a great picture to myself on the road anymore. Curb extensions. Yeah, we don't do this. They don't work.
Now, will they take them out on bike count?
I would say as you go along and review roads,
They really don't serve a purpose.
It does provide for like if you're a pedestrian, that one there, actually I don't really have a problem with that one there. I'll tell you why, because that's a pedestrian crossing there.
Okay, right.
And you want to have that pedestrians who have the least amount of roadway to cross. Right. So provide them with some safety from that. So look at not just from the car, but from a pedestrian perspective.
Where would the cyclist go if he's riding a bicycle on the side, all of a sudden he has to go into a traffic? How safety is that? The curb extension.
There is enough space there for cyclists to pass. You have to remember, cyclists has the right of way.
Well, looking at the picture by the right, there's a car.
They shouldn't be passing each other there. The cyclist has the right of the road, right?
I think they would be safer if there was no extension.
Some of the new extensions actually have it that the bike lane goes through, but that's a real operational maintenance problem. So again, this is just to show you some before and afters. Speed before and after, spacing of speed cushions, and you see, speed before was over 60, and it was down to close to the speed limit. So
is that an average speed or maximum speed?
That's average speed. right? So there's always gonna be those outliers. Oops. So, you know, we talked a lot about, a bit about policy today, different traffic calming devices themselves. You know, so first and foremost, if you would like us to go back and review it, follow policy. I will tell you that the list is quite long. Council has increased amount of money to be spent on traffic calming. But I'll also tell you that over the course of the last 2 years, out of all of the traffic calming petitions that have gone forward, maybe about 20% actually succeeded. Because a lot of people really don't like traffic calming. There's quite a backlash against traffic calming in the whole, in general, across the city right now. So, and you'll see that across all municipalities. People get frustrated. But, you know, traffic calming is one thing in terms of slowing down traffic. You know, recently, Councillor Ridley actually had quite a role in this, you know, introducing the reduced speed limits in school zones. We have a new pedestrian crossing, different types of crossings that we're going to be putting out in the next 6 months or so for different areas. It's all about providing a better experience for the pedestrians, slowing down traffic, and it's not just one tool that works. Traffic calming is good. Different pedestrian crossings will help in terms of getting people around, providing safe routes to school, reducing the speed limits in schools, all of those things. What they all do is create a culture of safety and create a culture of people thinking about what they should be doing in their local streets themselves. So education is quite important. We do education campaigns out there as well with people, but you know, just getting out, spreading the word, you know, in your own community association. If you're involved in community association, talk about speeding in your neighborhood, because I'll be honest, you know, all of you should look at your speedometer next time you go home. Are you doing 50? Right? Because we're all part of the solution. We're also sometimes part of the problem as well. So, you know, so that's the traffic calming policy and the procedure to follow. You know, we heard a lot tonight about this particular area, the speed bumps that are there, potentially reevaluating the entire area. It was actually undertaken through an environmental assessment back in the 1990s. So we would actually have to go back and study the area as a whole and see what potential changes that we would make.
So there was a couple other questions first that we missed earlier, and one was about the construction, and I apologize if we covered it. So with the Commissioner's Road construction, is there any ability to have temporary traffic calming on Viscount and Village Green while we're in closure?
Yeah, so I believe you know, we can look at putting some of the rubber speed humps down, and then some of the middle of the road. Sorry, I don't have a picture of it. We've been putting down speed limit signs in the middle of the road on bendable. You may have seen some of those.
We have some on Village Green right now, but I think it was the temporary bumps, if we could do that to help just during the closure.
Don't need them. Don't need them.
Maybe not. I'm sorry, I missed something.
So we want to hit that 51%, right? Either way, so.
We'll do a vote.
We're trying to get away with the existing one, never mind putting some new ones.
So where would we go to get the petition forms? I live on Knightsbridge, and they just went, like there was a police officer yesterday that finally caught somebody. We have a wide variety of little kids ranging from 1 to 10 up and down that road, and we can't see. It's a blind spot, especially in this time of the year where the trees are full. They come down off of Cranbrook, which they're racing on Cranbrook. I'm telling you, paintball guns would love them at this time of the year, because they come spinning around the corner fast off of Cranbrook, and they come whipping down Knightsbridge, and Knightsbridge goes all the way down to Longworth. There is nothing but a hill, which naturally speeds up any vehicle, regardless of who you are driving. You're not paying attention to the speedometer. Nobody ever really does. But we are concerned about the children going to get hit. So we have signs out that we have bought and put on the edge of the curb, right on the road. Children playing, slow down, and they don't pay attention at all.
So let me just let me clarify the process. So when we get a complaint could be one person, could be someone going and getting a bunch of people to sign, on a petition. The petition that I talked about at 25 and the 50% level, that's actually undertaken by the city. Because we want to have a very fair, open, transparent process where, you know, quite frankly, when someone comes to your door and says, world's falling down, sign this petition so we can get you know, this moving along, people feel pressured to sign things.
Right.
So the actual petition is undertaken by the city at the 25% level and at the 50% level. But the initial request could come through a single form or by a petition of people that are interested, but that petition doesn't count in terms of the overall sort of evaluations. So this, and thank you for reminding me, this is the link. If you look at london.ca, the traffic calming, the whole policy is there, the various measures that we look at, a lot of information on our website related to this.
So quite often also people will email me if you're forgetting and you walk out and you know I know how to find Virginia, they'll email me and I'll forward those requests to start that process. Thank you.
To reduce speed limits for schools, is that going to be all day long, or is it just during specific time periods?
It is all day long because it has to. What we're trying to do is create a culture in those areas. If you only put it for certain times of the day, people don't look at their watch when they're driving.
Have you looked? We go to Florida in the wintertime. Down there, they have flashing lights.
Yes.
And when those lights are flashing, I'll tell you, the traffic slows down to 20 miles an hour. There's no fooling around.
So the speed limit.
The rest of the time, speed limit is normal.
Right, so speed limit reduction that I'm talking about is on local roads. Okay, it's not on arterial roads. Right. So the council did ask us to go back and look at. There's a number of schools that are on arterial roads, or potentially can have one side of the school on local road, one side on arterial road. What can we do for the arterial roads? And so we're looking at those measures. One of them could be on arterials that we do have the flashers, just for those school times. But on the local roads, it is all day.
What number are you looking at, 30 or 40?
It's 40. Council passed 40.
All right. Isn't a speed limit of 40K, isn't that like a traffic calming device? It slows down traffic. So people are going to, on Vicom, we have two schools back to back, St. Jude's and the other one. And so therefore, they're all going to go down Andover Drive because it's 50, because you can still fly by there. And meanwhile, on Vicom, you got to go nice and slow, so you just rather take a different route.
So the speed limit signs are for about 150 meters in either direction, give or take, of any school. I want you all to do some quick math. You know, it's late in the day.
That'll kill all of Vicom South North section.
So when you think about how much time you will actually lose by doing 40, might be 10 seconds, right? So would you change your pattern in that section for 10 seconds? You know, if everyone's such a rush, I think as a society as a whole, we need to think about, you know, slowing down, not being in such a rush. Those 40-kilometer speed zones are not going to make people change their driving patterns. You're slowing down for 10 kilometers an hour for 300 to 400 meters of roadway. You won't add much time to
Why don't you put 40 on the Westmount Arterial Road system of the Knightsbridges and the Andovers and the Vicoms, and everybody get it?
So that would have to be like council policy, right? And other places have done that. They've changed entire residential speed limits that is in the direction the City of London has gone at this time. So it wouldn't be Mr. Soldo's ability to say, we should do this, that's a council policy.
Right. The City of Toronto has changed the majority of their roads to 40, but they are governed by different act. They're governed by the City of Toronto Act, so a lot of special powers. We're governed as the City of London under the Municipal Act. We cannot just say everything is going to be 40. That doesn't correspond to the Highway Traffic Act. So the province did look at allowing potentially municipalities to do that, and they decided not to do that.
So I just meant the residential streets are purely residential, not the entire system.
Right, but we can't do that. That's what I'm saying.
The Sherwood Fox Public School, for example, it's on David Road, it's on Steeplechase. So there would be a 40-kilometer zone on Steeplechase.
Yes.
But I'm a little confused. Would it also be a 40-kilometer zone on Viscount?
If the school has property that fronts onto the local road, the speed, no. So only on the area that it fronts.
Okay.
So St. Lawrence, somebody here lives on St. Lawrence maybe, or maybe they left. I believe, the school there, is it Brock?
Magic Rock?
Does it front both? You can get to the school, like there's school property on one side on St. Lawrence and then school property on the other side as well. I think
Yes.
that's the example where it would apply to both.
Yeah.
So would that work with the Westmount Public School? Sorry, only because right at the intersection of Farnham and Viscount, there are like, say 6 or 10 houses in that corner block. But down a bit on Viscount, you can access the property, which is zoned City of London property park, and then it goes on to the school park, because the school property merges with the City of London, both on McMaster's as well as on Viscount property.
It was that the school property must abut that roadway, not.
So the front entrance?
If there's another parkway access.
Because there's a park behind it, then it wouldn't count, but in
I
that
was just
example
wondering
on
because it's
Viscount.
merged in with the City of London property as well.
No.
Okay. Yep. The parks that enter, the part of the school that enters into McMaster's and Viscount, that's city-owned property park. And then it goes into this public school park and the Catholic Board park.
Just going back to, you're talking about the municipal act. I don't know how Toronto will get around that, but I was just down over to Victoria Playhouse in Troy, Wyoming, downtown, it's 40.
Right, so you can, but you have to sign everything. So when you enter the city, you see those big signs.
Yeah.
Welcome to London, here's the population. On the bottom, you get all these parking regulations on there.
Yeah.
And the speed limit sign says, standard speed in the city of London is 50. If it's anything deviates from that, 60, 70, 80, 90, 40, you have to sign it. So if we were to choose, we're gonna take all the Westmount, make it 40, we would probably spend a couple $100,000 worth on signs. Because you have to sign every roadway after every intersection, so that anywhere you go, that you know that it's 40.
There's a question in the back, and then we'll come there next. Yeah.
So the original Westmount traffic calming measures cost about $300,000 to put in. One of the main reasons why they bring this or brought them in was in the more posher areas that were being built at the time up north. There were people with exotic sports cars speeding around there. Now, like I'm just looking at your list for enforcement, or sorry for measures there. Police enforcement didn't make the list. Now, $300,000 pays for 2 years of police officer time with a squad car. So why isn't, like, I mean, if you're just dealing with outliers, as you said, why isn't something like that put in? Because I bet if you had a police officer in that area for 40 or 80 hours, so just even 2 weeks, ticket those people and get them, either, so they understand the ticket, or ticket them to the point that they lose their license or suspension, then, we deal with this problem.
So I would say to you, the police do enforce, and you say, well, I don't see them. But are you out on the road 100% of the time? Right? We all spend maybe 5 minutes going by a roadway, you don't see a police officer. Don't take that as the fact that there's no police enforcement. They're out there all the time. They're out there, patrolling. We identify locations for them, they go out and they do enforcement. So they have to enforce across the entire city and all the various areas that they do. So there is enforcement out there. You may not see it because they don't sit in that car for 24 hours a day giving out tickets on location. And that would actually not be effective, I'll tell you, sir, because you go by and you see the police officer there, it's a speed trap, and now everyone slows down, which is great for 5 minutes, let you know that they're there, and then they're gone, right? So they are out there enforcing, it just, you may not see them all the time.
I think commissioners, it's wide street, and you say make it narrow, make people slow down. It's wider now, but I think people know that there is enforcement off and on, they don't know when. And I think people stick pretty well close to the speed limit. You don't see people really zooming by on this. They know they're gonna get caught, they slow down.
I had another point. Yeah, I think you're right, that when they see the enforcement and they know, then they just start slowing down, and that's where I said to people, and I know people were coming and going, but if there are areas, identify them for me, and we'll send that to the police enforcement and say, can you do a blitz or target this area?
Well, once might work, but they kind of have to go, times.
And move around.
And move around, so if you don't know, then you keep it down.
I had one here and then at the back.
Yes, North Wonderland Road at Midway, there are grooves in the pavement that causes your tires to like whine.
Yep.
Which calms you, slows you down, and of course it alarms you that there's going to be a stop sign ahead. It sounds cheaper than these other things.
So there's two measures. There's the grooves that as you come up to an intersection, but they also have rumble strips on the side of the road so you don't run off. Those are measures used in areas that are in rural nature. And the reason why, if you live right next to it, it'd be a constant hum, right? That's the measure that's coming back to you. That's the experience you're getting. You hear it, but if you're a homeowner, you just might just play guitar all day because it just keeps on going and going. So that's a measure only used in rural areas where noise isn't a factor.
I'm right at Whitetown, so I'm just like Sarah, like we thank you, we put that stop sign, but we've seen a bus go through. So then we need something else, perhaps, a bus go through. My son's a coffee shop, so, and other people go through it rarely, but they go through it. They don't see it.
I guess I'll start off with I'll go back to what I started off and said. Stop signs will only put in when you really need them, and then it takes time for people to get accustomed to them.
But I'm gonna order two for my street then. We really need them bad.
At the back?
Yeah, I am curious about the stop sign that went in at Pine Valley and Viscount. What kind of numbers did you get, in terms of, like a petition or, how did?
I'd have to go back and check, sorry, I don't know off the top of my head.
There were a lot of accidents, and I know the studies were done with speed, and the traffic volumes did warrant it. It's been studied several times. I've had people in the neighborhood say, we've asked for it in the past, but when they did it this time, then it did warrant it, so we were able to move ahead with that.
Well, there's a curve, you couldn't see where the cars were coming, so the stop.
Right.
I agree with the person behind me, said that police officers are the biggest deterrent for that kind of speeding anywhere. Do you know how many police cars are equipped with radar guns to stop people? Do you have any number? Because I'm friends with a lot of cops.
I can't answer that question, but I would tell
I
you.
can tell you it's less than 50% of those squad cars have that.
But what I would tell you though is that police officers don't tend to ticket people unless they're going at least 10 over.
15.
Right? Sometimes
You can't ticket
15.
someone if you're not equipped to ticket them in the first place.
Here's a here.
In the squad car.
I can share with you my experience because I've done 2 or 3 ride-alongs with the police, and there's 20 or 30 cars out through the night, and there's 4 or 5 that are doing traffic out of those. And at my last meeting we did was on policing and how policing in the city works. It's all on priority basis. When they take 4 people off, then those are 4 officers that aren't going to urgent calls, but they do have dedicated enforcement. But you're right, it's not every police car does enforcement. We'll go here first, then we'll come back. So, in the middle? Sorry.
I was just curious, based upon the conversation we've had here this evening, if we had a show of hands, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. How many people want to improve the effectiveness of traffic calming measures in West Mountain? And how many people want to reduce the impact on us of the traffic calming measures in West Mountain? Because I hear a lot of people here, I hear a lot of people here who are concerned about the impact of traffic calming measures because they're making our life more difficult.
So you're wondering how many people would like speed bumps and traffic calming and how people would not?
I think the question is, how do we make maybe Wonderland more efficient so that only the cars that are on our various side streets are the ones that, for lack of a better word, really should be there? And I don't even know if that can be answered or not, and if that's really, if we take those, are those the cars that are causing problems, are the ones that really should have been on Wonderland anyways, or Viscount, or Commissioners?
So that's a great question. And that really goes into, in terms of, what are we doing from the overall arterial road network, the Wonderlands, the Commissioners, the Southdales. So the city does have a 20-year plan of the entire road network on where we're going to deal with congestion as congestion grows. More congestion you have in Wonderland, people get annoyed, they jump into the side streets. That's some of that cut-through traffic. So You know, the transportation master plan that was undertaken a couple of years ago identified things such as the widening of Commissioner. So you're seeing that widening happen now. Short-term pain, long-term benefit in terms of the capacity improvements, but also getting rid of some of the cars going through the local roads. Commissioner's Road to the west will get fixed eventually in terms of widening. Southdale Road will be widened to 4 lanes. When you provide that kind of arterial network, Wonderland, and you know, don't throw tomatoes at me, but we synchronize those lights all the time. I know you don't believe me, but we do. You know, so it's like we work at optimizing the existing system. Wonderland is slated for widening to 6 lanes. Right? But that's longer term down the road, and at the same time, think about what does that mean in terms of potential impact to Wonderland Road. So that is longer, and it's something that's it's going to happen in the longer term. But because there is all that congestion, we have a new interchange on the 401, more traffic going north-south. Wonderland is the only road, one of the only roads in this city that goes from our north boundary to our south boundary. Right? So people come in from way in the north, all the way from Sunnydale, and they can go all the way to St. Thomas on that roadway, right? So it is a major roadway. It's not going to change.
Okay, so I'm just going to go in order. So I have the green shirt there, black shirt with glasses, flowered shirt, and red.
So I have a speed hump right in front of my house. And when it went in, I was not a big fan, right? But the reality is, I live on Viscount, I'm on the hill, and 3 weeks later, my wife says, you know, I can back out of my driveway now, right? I don't see a car up the street, up the hill at Cranbrook. I can back out and be sure that I can get up the driveway. If that speed hump's not there, she could look up the hill, won't be anything at the intersection of Cranbrook and Viscount. By the time she gets back up, a bus will run her over. So I'm telling you, those little new humps there, they're not going to help you any good on Viscount Road. I would just prefer that if we put a new, nice, clean paint job, so we can see the ones that are nicely shaded by the trees and paint's worn off. And I wouldn't bother with chevrons or triangles. Paint the whole silly thing yellow. So it lasts a long time.
So this is a typical traffic calming discussion. Some people like it, some people hate it, right? So it all comes down to personal preference at the end of the day, and that's why we really have a policy in place to get buy-in from the community. So.
And regarding the comment about the mall not being as a big a draw anymore, we still have well over 1,000 students going to the high school and 2 elementary schools at the end of Viscount Road. We have tons of people coming through that West Mount area. I mean, I bought a house on a very busy street, and I probably got a pretty good price for it. I kind of bought into the idea, well, I'm going to have to put up with some traffic, right? You bought a house on Cranbrook, you bought into that too. It's the kind of thing you bought when you bought that house, right? You may not have Cranbrook in back in the day wasn't as busy, but it is now. I just wish they just, the occasion where I'm doing a little bit more than 20 kilometers an hour off of a stop sign, and I forget about that one that's no longer painted and is shaded by the tree that's so beautiful this time of year. I hit it, and oh my gosh, did a silly thing again. And I've been living in the neighborhood the whole time the speed hump's been there. I know it's there. You forget. Right? So,
does anybody know how much longer it takes to clear West Mount after snowfall, or the snow travels up the speed bumps? And how long longer it takes the ambulance and fire engines to get to where they have to go because of all speed bumps?
It doesn't take you any longer to clear the road. It's negligible.
Some roads are not clear.
I'll take that as a positive comment that we actually clear the roads.
It's only bus routes that are clear, right? Actually, most stretches of Viscount of Village Green are not in that hill.
So collector roads are.
I can vouch for that because I get
collector roads. There's different standards for snow clearing based on the depth of the snow, the type of the road that you're on. So depending on where you are, you have a different cleaning sort of approach.
Village Green will become
if it's a local road and it's and snow is only so deep, it might only be sand.
Sorry. I have the next question question over here.
I just want to make a statement. I've noticed a big difference on Village Green from Steeplechase down to Andover since they removed the bus lanes. That in itself caused traffic to just fly. Buses, when they used to be on Village Green was a very good road to drive on for safety. Now I'm realizing since Commissioners is under construction, people, I do my walkabout and I can see them driving up from Commissioners from 3 o'clock on going up Village Green, trying to get to Wonderland. Yeah. It's a great deterrent. There absolutely should be a mandate of the city that whenever an area is under construction, that it's a given that there be some way to control traffic. I'm certainly not for speed bumps. I have physical disabilities and speed bumps kill me. However, there should be something, maybe police enforcement, something. Andover, Viscount, all of these streets, and even coming down Southdale Road, which by the way, I was in on all of that business of making all those roads, all that safety curbs up Andover. I was against it, and they went ahead and put it in anyways. But that turn from Southdale going up to Andover, there should be a caution, there should be an arrow. I have seen people just miss getting hit by cars coming in, and I know you've done traffic counts, I understand all that, but it's a dangerous road when people are flying down from Wonderland, turning from Southdale onto Andover, and just missing a car coming. So there should be something when an area is under construction, that it's a given that there be more policing, that there be more signage out like this. I appreciate you very much, Ms. Ripley, for having the signage putting out on the street on Village Green. I do believe that has caught attention. I appreciate very much the stop sign on Pine Valley and Viscount. That has definitely slowed down traffic, but it just should be a mandate. It just should be. I heard from people that lived up on Hyde Park Road, all those side roads, getting all those traffics. It's just going to happen. You should be preventative instead of having meetings like this and coming and listening to souls with frustration. It should be a given. Oh, we've got construction for the next 2 years. We're going to have more policing here. We're going to have more signage. We're going to do something.
So, madam,
because it's not safe.
We do that. We do prevent our
I can see it.
So on Hyde Park, a lot of roads got speed humps along the way. Speed humps. So we do a lot of that, but at the end of the day, you can't control every single road, and people are going to find a way to get through neighborhoods. So we do the best that we can. The main sort of detour routes are signed for people to go around, and we would look at it, well, where are people going to sneak? And we put that kind of traffic calming in there. But unfortunately, you can't control traffic on every road. And a lot of people, once they get off the main road, they get lost, right? So they end up going through all sorts of areas of the neighborhood itself. So we do a lot of preventative measures like that.
Well, I appreciate that, but as I said, I feel like there must be more. And I am definitely not for speed bumps.
We're going to go here, to the back, and then black, and then white.
Now I have 2 comments. I agree with you, and that's been my conversations with Virginia is, and I know some of my other neighbors, is where was the preventative when commissioners went? Because you knew Village Green was going to be a problem. Beechwood got it, no problem. Beechwood already had speed bumps. Now you've got these pillows, and they work. And what was the difference between Beechwood and Village Green? So that was one thing. The other one was the gentleman's question around, are we here because we want more calming or we don't? And I think the answer would have to be, what area? So we're in an area of Westmount where we don't have calming. Behind the mall, I agree, it is awful, so you try to avoid those streets. But, so it depends on where you live. And I know you're saying that, you know, it's our perspective that people are speeding. Well, our perspective is our reality. So, you know, we see people speeding down the street. And we know there are people at 4:30 in the morning racing Village Green, we hear it. And so it's just something needs to be done even in an interim.
And I'm not sure if I missed this, but Edward, did you touch on some of the passive measures like parked cars and trees? I know that was one.
Parked cars that we didn't really touch upon. You know, and that's another maybe a misconception. People think there's a lot of parked cars, safety issues, but again, it's about the driver and going down the roadway and what comfort level they're at. So we hear lots from people, take all the parking off. We don't want people parking in front of our house. As soon as you do that, you can increase the speeds. Because now the roadway is wide open again, going back to that runway effect that I talked about earlier. So in certain areas, it might be a good idea to reintroduce parking where there isn't any other safety concerns related to that parking itself. So it's about redesigning the roads, changing the character of the roadway itself.
I know there's other small towns that I travel in, and someone said that I think they lived in an area where maybe they purchased this themselves, but there's people will put kind of by the tree near their front house, you know, a small little plastic. It looks like a little child, right? And it's just that reminder that, oh, there are children here, and it catches your eye. It doesn't?
No.
Okay.
They don't drive any less than 80 down that road, and I'm only the 5th house down.
So I'd said at the back.
I just wanted to say first, the question about the how slow, how much extra time it takes for the emergency vehicles to get through an area. The fire chief back in '97 reported about 30 seconds they'd have to slow down per speed hump. Which he had concerns at the time. I don't know if they were addressed about fire coverage in some of the areas of Westmount. Now, on your list of enforcements, I know you have speed humps, sort of number 1, and then the raised intersections number 2. If they're built, the raised intersections to, you know, the Canadian standards in the engineering textbooks, you're only supposed to actually feel those above 50 kilometers an hour. So I would suggest, like you mentioned about the outliers that were causing these speeding problems, I'd suggest looking at putting more of those in, just because of the fact it's those people that are going to feel that bouncy effect on their suspension going through there. And those are the guys that we want to go after, not the kind of draconian effects we have of everyone, including ambulances, things like that, having to go through the other way.
Right, so, and that's an appropriate solution in certain areas. Is a very costly solution, I will tell you as well. You know, it's not, you know, $20,000, $30,000. It's a lot more than that in terms of putting them in. So we only put that sort of solution in where there's I would say a higher, more severe problem, and that when we go in and retrofit roadways themselves.
Well, how much more do they cost then? No question.
It depends on the intersection. It could be 100, 150,000.
Okay, the back.
It was addressed.
Perfect, right here.
I just have a comment about that. You know, I understand roads have to be widened and fixed and we have to put up construction. My frustration comes when Southdale was in that complete mess with that new subdivision they put in just behind Home Depot area, and that they didn't widen the road at the time. It was already a mess and being closed off. Why didn't they widen it again? Instead, they re-poured the sidewalks in the exact same spot that they're gonna have to rip up 5 to 10 years later to widen it. It was already gone.
So what section are you talking about? East of, west of?
From like Home Depot to Farnham.
Wonderland.
Yeah.
Where they're putting new rink.
The community center, right.
All that area.
So that goes back to my earlier discussion about overall need in terms of transportation master plan and the growth of traffic on there. Didn't warrant it. We trigger a road widening when basically roads at capacity, for lack of a better word, because the development community pays for it. They're paying through that through development charges, which then gets passed on to new homeowners. So looking at it from a network perspective, one of the biggest issues on Southdale, if anyone's coming in from Wellington Street, taking Bradley down to White Oaks, and then most people at that point, if you're going this way, you come up to Southdale. So there's a lot of missing links in the network. What you're going to see over the course of the next couple of years is the extension of Bradley basically all the way to Colonel Talbot, right? So now there will be a parallel roadway to Southdale where people will take a lot of that traffic off. So we make improvements in the system as a whole to help traffic move around. Once the Bradley extension goes in, you're going to see a lot less traffic on Southdale. But Southdale does need widening, because when the rest of that area around the community center grows out, there's going to be traffic. You've got those 2 twin towers, the 3rd tower, I think, being proposed down there, right? So All of that is scheduled, but you can't build it all at once, because then all the traffic will be on the local roads themselves, right? We have to make sure that when we widen roadways, you never see us widen parallel roads right beside each other. We always need detours. So Hyde Park's suffered for the last few years. This year is Commissioners, next year is Bradley. So what we do is we do those widenings in a manner that we actually have other roadways for people to go on, or otherwise they would all be going to local roads themselves.
Yeah. So what's the time frame to widen Southdale?
Southdale is actually going to undergo an environmental assessment starting later this year, early next year. I believe the first section of widening is scheduled for 2019.
From Wonderland
from Wonderland down to Colonel Talbot. There'll be 2 phases. We just haven't determined which phase is going to go first, because Colonel Talbot was supposed to be second, but a lot of traffic and a lot of things have gone in there recently. So.
Do you want to explain what the environmental assessment is?
Sure.
Just briefly.
Any infrastructure that's undertaken in Ontario in terms of road widenings, things like that, is subject to an Environmental Assessment Act, where we go and review the need for the project itself, you have to justify it, and then you look at the impact it's going to have on the community. So from an environmental, social, engineering perspective, all of those things. And then we determine what's the best way to actually do that widening. Is it widening on the center line, to the north, to the south? What's it going to look like? Is there bike lanes on it? Is it 4 lanes? Is it 2 lanes? Is it 3 lanes? So it's a requirement for municipalities to go through an environmental assessment process. As part of the process, a key component of that is public consultation. So we'll have numerous meetings through the course of that study to get public input on what that roadway should look like, hear from the residents in that area what the problems are, and also to hear from the homeowners or the landowners that abut that road and how to potentially impact them themselves. So that EA will be coming up in the course of, say, the next 6 months or so, and there'll be an opportunity for public to provide input on what that roadway should look like.
Or if in fact there should be a widening of the road instead of other solutions, is that not the case?
The master plan looked at those various alternatives, so the EA will go and reassess that again, but the widening is actually determined through the master plan, and it determined there was a need for the widening there itself.
Seems like a waste of taxpayer dollars to do it through, it's already hard.
Well, it's there's a process. There's a lot of underground that needs to move around. There's hydro to move. There's property to purchase. Don't forget, while you may see a lot of development occurring there, we don't own the property to do the widening in a lot of the areas themselves. All that land to the south, most likely we don't have that land. So we have to go through the Environmental Assessment Act in terms of determining how that road's going to look, how much land we need from the various property owners. So it's not a simple matter of just going and paving a roadway. There's a lot of considerations to take into account, and those landowners along that road also have rights as well.
Question back here?
Yes, I'm just trying to manage my anxiety level. Was the purpose of this meeting to tell us we're getting more traffic calming, or was it to tell us we're getting less traffic calming? Or was it just a thought?
My intent was to explain what traffic calming is. It's a question I get at least weekly is, can we get traffic calming here, or do we have a speed issue? So it's more to explain what traffic calming is, what the process looks like, and then let you go back to your own communities and speak to your neighbors about what your needs are. One of the past councillors actually said to me that was the best thing to do when someone called to ask for something and say, well, go talk to your neighbor on the left and neighbor on the right, and if you guys all agree, then come back to me. So it was my intent to give you the information so you can go back to your neighbors with what you've learned and say, is this something we want to look at, and start the process up, because now you know what the process would look like.
And really the goal.
There's nothing planned that you're able to say yes or no to today or anything like that. This is just about what would happen, how you would get traffic calming, and a bit of education around that.
So my goal today was to explain the process to you, but also to help you understand the expectations. Because there's a lot of people that like traffic calming, a lot of people that don't. And it really, there's a lot of strong opinions on it. So our goal here really was to help educate you on the process.
Yeah, just like, I think everybody would like to know, is people, when you install the traffic calming, these speed bumps, is it based on traffic of 600 to 3,000 cars per day? Or can any street be allowed to install speed bumps or speed humps?
Depending on the volume, it goes back to, as explained earlier, there's a points sort of system, how much traffic you have on your roadway. You have to have a minimum amount of traffic on your roadway to get traffic calming. If you have 50 cars in your roadway, we're not going to put traffic calming on your roadway because most likely you just got to go talk to your neighbors to slow down, right? So it's about volumes, it's about speeds, it's about collisions, it's about sight lines, it's about a lot or different factors.
So that decision's been made before you send out the letter to the residents?
We'll do an initial survey to see if it's required or not.
So my experience has been someone has asked for it, I've emailed the department, they'll go out and do a survey and say, maybe, maybe not, you know, we're closed, or yes, we could look at this, no, we can't, then we'll ask the residents. So you can have areas that absolutely would qualify for it under the policy, and residents say, no way, right? And that's where that dual survey comes in, because then it comes back to you guys and what you want in your community. Yeah, I got a whole bunch, start there.
This isn't about traffic calming, I'm just wondering if you could tell me how we find out more about it, but I'm just curious why London makes high rises right in residential areas. Like I live near those 3 buildings going up on Southdale, well, near enough that it looks like Las Vegas when you step out the front door with your lights lit up at night. And I don't know why I, would pay so much in my taxes to look at that. That's why I moved into a home, not an apartment building.
So those, I'm going to give you my best attempt to answer. I'm not planning.
I know.
But the old official plan allowed for certain types of developments throughout the city. The new official plan the council just approved restricts those types of developments to certain core areas. It does allow for the grandfathering of certain developments that already have those rights already. So, I would say to you the simplest answer, that was an old way of thinking, allowing development, especially apartment buildings, to happen right at the edge of the urban boundary. It's not the way that we plan cities as we move forward.
Okay, there's a couple more right there.
Have you ever received a request to remove traffic calming measures?
All the time.
Seriously?
All the time.
Oh, okay. So if traffic patterns actually change in an area, and the citizens put in a request, that can actually be done.
We'll follow the same policy, same process. We review it, and then at the end of the day, we like 51% say take them out.
There's some more questions. Yep.
A lot of these traffic calming measures have to be put in because of a lack of a grid system, like what we see in Wortley Village, which was built there, where all the streets are just sort of like a grid crossing each other. So now that design allows for more homes, so you get bigger urban density, to collect more taxes from each acre of land. Better for snow clearing, so you cut down on expenses. And the developers want that because they can sell more lots to people, fit more houses on there. Now, like I said, my dad, he was for 40 plus years a civil engineer, and if he brought forward a grid plan at City Hall, like they just laugh at him. Is council now going to consider the engineering department and you as a councillor, if you saw one of these plans brought forth to council, would you vote in favor of such a plan?
Well, I would suggest if you take a look at the London plan, we're moving back towards that more so. I know when, I and my husband read through it, he said, oh, this is like Old North is what they're trying to plan for. And it's, houses closer to the front of the street, more neighborhood interaction, complete streets, and more on the grid system. So it's something that I did support and I would support. Because all those things are part of the big picture, right? And when you portion them off, and we talk about traffic calming, we're not looking at the big picture and all of the things that are happening in the city of London. I can take you back to the Shift Rapid Transit. One of the reasons that I really supported it was we need to move people differently because this traffic issue is only going to get bigger and bigger, right? There's 2 cars in my driveway this year. Within 8 years, there'll be 4 cars in my driveway. And how many of you know somebody? How many of you know somebody in this room? And how many of you came together with somebody you know in this room? I would guess there's 35 cars out there. There are a few people who walked. But those are the things that we need to change, and to me, that's the big picture thinking, and it is looking at how does the London plan impact traffic calming, how our neighborhoods grow, how our communities grow, how does rapid transit fit into that, right? So it can identify an issue on one street, and we can target that and look at that on a case-by-case basis, and that's what we're doing, and that's what I'm encouraging you to do, but certainly it's looking at that big picture and looking at how everything is going to interact and how it betters the city in the long run. Does that help?
The only thing that I would add there is, a couple of points you made at the very
Someone covered
beginning.
it all, Edward.
I always have to have the last word. Come on. The only point I'll add, the grid system's better from connectivity, mobility, walking, all those sort of things. You made the comment that developers want that. I would highly disagree with you.
Yeah, I like I said, my dad's, there's a lot of them, and they just, they know that in order for them to make money, they have to get it through the engineering department.
It's not the engineering department that creates the numbers, sorry.
I know it is before you started.
No, I still would disagree with you, sir. It's developers want the roadways the way they were.
Trust me, my dad did a lot of the stuff in White Oaks, unfortunately, because of the loops. The one guy told him, it would look boring if I was in a helicopter going over it, if it was just grids. Like, that was the mentality at the time of the engineers, so I'm sorry that, Counselor, but I mean, a lot of these things get stopped way before they actually get to the council chambers. And, sometimes the power of, the engineering department can actually just quickly kill those ideas.
I think, I'll comment on that briefly because I already touched on the London plan and your exact issue of the grid system. But I would indicate, if you're following council and you look at some of my colleagues, there are people who are very passionate, very educated, very intense on issues, and they're bringing forward things to staff that in the past staff would bring to us and try to walk us through it. And I have colleagues who are bringing forward tax policy change, and they're researching, they're educating, they're bringing forward those things. So, if you're following City Hall, I would say watch for that. Watch for people who are leaders and who are bringing these substantive changes to staff and making change. And I think staff would come in to a different council to work with in that way. So I'll look for the next one is over here.
Yeah, getting back to the traffic calming, because of the construction on Commissioners, would it be the same thing to say that until that's finished and until traffic redistributes itself and gets back to normal, that it's really not a good idea to put anything in, any permanent thing in now that's in response to a temporary situation? Is that a logical thing to say?
I think that's a fair observation. I'll use Hyde Park as the example. We got a lot of requests to put in permanent traffic calming. As soon as that road went to 4 lanes and got opened up, all that traffic went back in the area that had to go. So we tend not to do evaluations for stuff like this, traffic calming or things like that, when there's something nearby that's making an impact on that area that's temporary in nature. It's not, you don't want to be putting something in permanent to solve a temporary problem.
We're getting close to 8 o'clock. I know some people want to head out. I just want to remind you if your question didn't get answered or if it's more personal, I have papers at the front and back. You can just write me a note and leave it and we'll get back to you. If there are a couple more general questions, we'll do that, and then I'd like time for people to kind of approach one-on-one. So.
Hi, you talked about all the measures that you're taking, but they're going to close Commissioners Road for up to 5 days. What can we expect as traffic calming measures during that phase of construction? Because most people that are driving down Commissioners Road know the area. So they're not going to go from Commissioners all the way over to Southdale. They're going to cut through on Village Green, they're going to cut through on Viscount and get out.
Is the intersection at Andover, and is that going to be closed? Because it says Beechwood, and which is past, isn't it?
It's one. It's actually one.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's one intersection that's being closed.
Well, there'll be a lot less cars in the neighborhood after that's done.
So it's one intersection that's going to be closed up to 5 days. We're hoping it's going to be less, but unfortunately, it's a water main that's 8 meters deep, and unfortunately, we gotta shut the whole road down, so.
So are they gonna have any signs that?
There's
will
signage
speed
out there right
limits and
now.
Police enforcement?
And there's signage out there right now that is telling people where the routes are. We're putting in detour routes, one going north, one going south for people to follow. But end of the
Like
day.
I said, most people know the area, and
Right.
they're not gonna take that detour.
And those detours, in all respect, those detours will become saturated. They will become congested. People have no option but to use some of the local roads. So it's a short term.
If I put a board in front of my house that says slow down, nobody will take that?
No, we won't take
Okay, there's a couple more questions I'd like to.
The entrance to Buttonbush, right across from the two towers, the apartment towers.
Yeah.
I heard that was gonna be closed down, and all the traffic in the new subdivision will come out on Tillman. Is that true?
No, the roadway's there, it's gonna stay there.
It's gonna stay there? Gonna have a stop sign there, or to get into Southdale, or traffic lights?
Well, the roadway's currently existing there today, right? But
So-
the road's currently existing there today.
Yes.
It's gonna stay as is.
And
No-
so
no
you're
stop
asking
sign,
if
no
there's a
signal
plan
lights.
for a traffic light? What's at the
Oh, you
intersection
mean-
right now?
Well, it's just a.
Stop sign.
There's no stop sign.
There is stop.
Oh, you mean coming out onto Southdale, yeah?
Yes.
there's a stop sign.
There will be no stop sign on Southdale. No, we do not put stop signs on arterial roads.
So, but that road will stay there, the entrance.
There's some more questions? Yeah?
I'm wondering about a local traffic only sign, because they're using Ensign Drive people because they're avoiding the stop signs on Blacktown. Is it allowed? Does it stop? Does it slow people down? Is it like local traffic only signs? You haven't mentioned-
Very honest answer, ma'am. That's not a very good measure. No one reads those kind of signs, right? So local traffic, don't use your air brakes. How often do you read signs that are, you know, for information on the side of the road? People don't, it doesn't make an impact. It actually causes more sign pollution so the point of people actually miss the regulatory signs that they should follow.
Any word on, I know this is in our area, on the bridge on Windermere, when it'll be open?
It's actually ahead of schedule. We're hoping that it's going to be open, I believe it's late October, somewhere there. But because we shut down the bridge itself, allowed us to work at a faster pace.
You were saying earlier that you and your team or just you or whatever would reevaluate the west area, the developments that's going to be continue growing and stuff. When you do that, is there any way for us to find out the results of your decisions of the conversations on it?
Yeah, I think, you know, that has to be done through a public process. We wouldn't be doing it in isolation.
I was just curious, like how that would go and then how could we follow up with you guys reviewing the west?
There'll be a public process for input from members of.
So we'll just keep an eye out for the upcoming meetings?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and speak to them, because it was done through an EA that was initiated back in the late 90s.
Right.
We've been making minor changes to that as well, you know, as time's gone by. Probably needs an area-wide type study. We've undertaken a lot of these area studies in the past. A couple years ago, we took one in Old North. Very contentious, right? It's just like you hear tonight. There'll be some for, from, some people will be against it. But I think it might be time to reevaluate, you know, is that appropriate measures and are they all needed? So.
I was just curious to know, because you know within 10 years or so, the other side of Colonel Tom on the south side of Southdale will grow. Because they've already taken the orchard type and everything, so you know that will be developed as well too. I would imagine within a 10-year span or longer. So I think a revised revision of thought for the west would be nice.
And
Just keep an eye on the public, yeah.
it also goes back to the widening of Southdale,
Right,
widening of other roadways.
You also have the new YMCA branch thing going up the road too, right? So that's gonna make another impact in towards Landway.
So I do try to cover things that are coming up, EAs, etc., planning applications in my newsletter, which I also post to my website if you don't want it in your inbox. But if you do want it and aren't getting it, if you leave me your email address on one of the comment cards, then I'll add you to that. And then when there's substantial decisions over 10, I try to include those as well. There's nothing else of a very general nature, then I'm gonna end the meeting and then encourage you, I'm here and Edward will be here for the next probably 20 minutes. If you wanna come and chat, or if there's something that wasn't included that you wanted to talk about, then we can do that. So,
Can I just ask one general question?
Yes.
What is the current, what's an update on the corner of Spring and Wonderland with the development there on the southwest corner?
So that, I believe was approved. They haven't started construction yet.
What's approved? What was?
Sorry, there was an apartment building that was going up there. Is that where you mean across from the
But there
Civic
was-
Gardens complex?
It went back to the drawing board a
Did it
couple
get?
of times.
Yeah.
Megan just got stalled. Last I read it was just.
Maybe if you could address that in your newsletter.
Yep,
or something.
I will. Sorry, I thought it had passed, but I will confirm.
I got nothing and I'm on the list of
Okay.
mails for meals.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just wondering why London shut down the cameras on the streetlights for running reds. I worked out in Regina for a while, and if you were even in the intersection turned on yellow, as it turned red, it snapped a picture of your license plate and sent you the ticket instead. I truly think that's something London desperately needs, because I will go through a light and I look in my mirror and I'll watch 5 other people come behind me and it's been red long.
So that's misinformation. It's approved. It is starting January 1st.
Oh, it is approved?
Yeah.
Well, last I heard is that people said it was against their rights.
Yeah, so there is certain, it's not going to be at every location.
Okay.
There's, I believe there's 10 or 15 of them. You'll be hearing there's a whole public campaign about education related to this coming up. And there are a number of locations that will be seeing red light cameras January 1st.
But they're incredibly expensive because you have to find a private company to put it in, they get a take of the revenue. I don't know why it has to be done that way. Well, it should be, but
It's actually a consortium that's looking at all municipalities in Ontario. So we partnered with City of Toronto.
Is that City of Hamilton, is that huge for General Dynamics or something like that? Because the big defense contractors are always
It's the way it's been done all the way across Ontario.
So does the revenues go to the city?
It does.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. Yes.
I just want to thank Virginia for holding these meetings. All your monthly updates and all the other meetings you've had, it's a lot more than what we had in the past. And for Edward for coming out and taking the abuse. I guess it comes with the job, right?
Thank you, Jim. I'm happy to host this meetings. I've done it with 3 people, and I've done it with 100 people in the parking lot trying to get in. So I will continue to do them every 3 months because I said that I would, whether it's 3 people or 200 people. I'm happy to do it. My next meeting will be in the fall, in around November, and MPP Peggy Sattler has asked if we could do a joint meeting in case there's provincial or municipal issues that people want to chat about. So we'll do kind of a round table, some quick remarks, and then let people just kind of shoot their issues. So watch for that. Yes. Yeah. So thank you, everybody.